So back in the old days on this channel, like it would be pretty obvious that I would all the time being the news. I mean, one of the things that kind of grew this channel in the first place was sort of a disagreement that I had with Phil Spencer about putting Xbox exclusives on PC day and date, where I felt like that would definitely be detrimental towards the actual console itself, and that ended up being very accurate. I know a lot of people like to kind of poke fun at that, me canceling a pre-order basically because Microsoft spent 3 years saying this game is going to be exclusive to Xbox, and I felt it was anti-consumer more than anything. Like, you have this thing where people could have spent $500+ on an Xbox to be able to play this game, and next thing you know, they might not have been able to need to do that. It's like there's PC gamers that exist or whatever, but in the long run, since that's happened almost a decade on, what games have actually paid off by being on PC? I mean, I can only think of a few, and that would be Sea of Thieves and Starfield. I can't really think of many outside of that. It's like Gears of War failed on it, Halo failed on PC. You look at the Forza games; they've had moderate success. There hasn't really. Hellblade 2 was a big failure on PC. Forza Motorsport completely failed on PC. But again, they haven't had this tremendous success. Quantum Break, that game did terrible on PC. So really, it took away a lot of the identity of the Xbox, and for very little gain out of that. But I find this to be, an interesting thing that's happening, that I'm kind of back in the news a little bit, and I want to get started. Hey everybody, what's up? I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews with another video. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. I certainly appreciate it. I would appreciate it if you guys liked the video as well. It helps out the channel. I do daily gaming content. Try to be fun and informative as I can possibly be. So yeah, there's that. So like the videos and all that kind of good stuff. Now anyway, this was interesting because there's a kind of a different take that I have on this. But anyway, the other day, you guys might know who Tom Warren is. He's this guy with The Verge. He claims to be like an insider. I don't really necessarily have anything against this guy, but he's talking about Xbox handheld, how it might be able to run PlayStation games. And this was something that I thought was interesting because the other day it came out that PlayStation was working on a new handheld, and I was like, well, that's great. That really kind of takes away from Microsoft, who's also working on a handheld, because if you have the choice to buy an Xbox handheld that only can play Xbox games, or you can buy a PlayStation handheld that's going to be able to play, the PlayStation exclusives, a lot of the third-party stuff that Microsoft doesn't get, as well as Xbox exclusives, and that's really, really the smarter money, in my opinion. But so this was interesting because I kind of said it. So anyway, according to this, it says it appears to Microsoft's upcoming handheld console may be able to natively run PlayStation games, with Xbox brand opening up to numerous types of hardware. Its highly anticipated handheld device could expand on the software side in a major way. The popularity of portable consoles and PCs has kind of blown up in recent years, which, I kind of disagree with that blown up statement. I've stated this numerous times. The only handheld that's blown up is the Switch. And I think that's because A, affordability, and B, Nintendo exclusives. Anyway, according to this, it does list the Switch, but it says Steam Deck, Asus, ROG, but Steam Deck 3.5 million. That's not great. Asus less than $1 million. Again, that's not great. But anyway, it says there's so much, the handhelds are doing well or whatever. Other major platform holders like Xbox and PlayStation have almost certainly taken notice of the same and are heavily rumored to be working on their own handheld consoles. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer even hinted somewhat recently that an Xbox handheld is in the work, but is likely a few years away from release. Beyond just being a new hardware format for Xbox, though, the handheld console could bring about a revolutionary design change that would allow PlayStation games to natively run on the system. Insider Tom Warren from The Verge recently tweeted a link to his report on PlayStation purportedly developing a handheld console, where one commenter, me, lamented the possibility of it both running Xbox and PlayStation games due to Xbox's multi-platform push. In response, Warren claimed that Xbox handheld will be able to run PlayStation games as Sony publishes titles on PC. So I said, this was my comment, was, so Sony will release a handheld that runs both Xbox and PlayStation games because Microsoft puts their games on PlayStation. Meanwhile, Microsoft releasing a handheld that just has Xbox games and doesn't get all the third-party support that Sony gets. That's brilliant. And Tom Warren said Microsoft's handheld will also run PlayStation games because Sony puts their games on PC. Now, this is what I'll respond to first of all. all, right? One of the things that like he was talking about, and a lot of people talk about, is Microsoft having a Steam store on there, which I think that's never going to happen. And I've mentioned this for numerous reasons. Okay, so Microsoft and Sony sell us consoles at a cheaper price than it costs to produce because they do this thing called subsidizing the cost to us, right? So an Xbox Series X, for example, at launch probably would have cost us $900, $1,000 without subsidies, right? What they do is they go, okay, well, people are going to have to pay to play online, right? And so people pay to play online or whatever, which, again, that's subsidizing. People buy software from Microsoft, right, on their store. That's subsidizing the cost, because on a digital game that Microsoft owns, Microsoft gets 100% of that. They get 30% of the actual third-party stuff, right? They don't get that on a Steam store. If somebody buys, let's say they buy a game like Space Marine 2 on the Xbox store, Microsoft gets 30% of that, right? If they buy Space Marine on Steam, even if the Steam store is on Xbox, then they get 0% of that. So you kind of have to keep that in perspective going forward. So that's why I think that, obviously it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have like other non-Microsoft owned stores on your own thing. Not only that, but you can circumvent paying to play online if you have Steam on there. If you're buying a Steam game, they're not going to want you to charge to play online, because they don't do that. So you have people circumventing ways to pay for your games. You have people circumventing ways to pay for microtransactions. You have people circumventing ways to do everything. So that's why I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. Now, where you could see something where they're like, okay, well, it could run Windows. Well, listen, the Xbox as it sits runs Windows, right? And a kernel of it or whatever, right? And the reason why, if you guys ever watched the Xbox One documentary, the reason why that it doesn't run a full version of Windows is because there's a lot of stuff involved with running Windows. So if they were to just come out with a device that says runs Windows, right, it would be bogged down, just incredibly terrible for, you know what I mean? So anyway, just kind of getting back to this, but anyway, Warren report implies that Xbox handheld might ditch the closed software ecosystem that Microsoft usually went for on previous Xbox consoles, and potentially run a specialized version of Windows, basically making it a handheld gaming PC along with the same lines of the Asus ROG and like the Steam Deck. Since PCs can install storefronts like Steam, Epic Game Store, GOG, etc., the Xbox handheld would theoretically be able to download and run any PlayStation first-party games that are available on the platform. Now, here's the thing. When my original report, and people go, oh man, you're a PlayStation fanboy to say that. No, not at all. It just doesn't make sense to me that Microsoft would put their games on PlayStation, and that basically means that, hey, these games are going to be available on PlayStation along with PlayStation exclusive. Sony, on the other hand, while they do put some games on PC, it's never day and date unless it's like a multiplayer thing, and even outside of that, they might require like a login, right, and some kind of certification, something like that. Like to run on Steam Deck, it requires like certification. They could probably block that if they wanted to. So there is that. I mean, listen, I'm not saying that it wouldn't happen. I'm just saying that it's a completely different type of situation. Whereas, we see rumors that like Forza Horizon 5 is coming to PlayStation, right? Like, that's to me terrible. But anyway, we're still a little bit away from seeing if any of this stuff is actually true. Phil Spencer reinforced the notion in an interview, remarking that he wants an Xbox app experience to be improved on existing handheld PCs before Microsoft launches its own handheld device. All of these clues point to Windows possibly being the operating system of choice, but again, a version of that is already on the Xbox. If true, that could make for a very interesting situation where PlayStation games could run on hardware produced by its direct competitor. As always, though, Microsoft's plans could change, especially for a device that won't hit store shelves for years to come. So again, it's interesting, but again, like when you read some of this stuff, Sony's insistence on logging into a PlayStation account could prevent access to an Xbox handheld. It's very interesting to see how this kind of all works out. Xbox fans do seem to be very much desperate to try and convince themselves and others that are kind of really realistically upset over Xbox's decisions to put their games on PlayStation, and they're trying to kind of pass the buck to everybody else to make them feel equally as bad or whatever. But listen, if it could, like, here's the reason why. Like, so you have a Windows thing or whatever, like they probably want you to take your library with you and Game Pass with you, right? So if you have a Windows kind of thing running on there or whatever, that's not your library, right? Like I have so many games on Xbox, and like almost none of them will run on a Windows. You know what I mean? So there's a huge difference there. But anyway, I'll link this. You guys can check it out. Let me know what you guys think. What are your plans and hopes for an Xbox handheld? Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe, rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.